A beautiful African-American woman in an elegant navy evening gown holds a glass trophy, standing in a bright modern ballroom with floor-to-ceiling windows showing a city skyline at dusk. She wears a delicate gold necklace with a small diamond pendant and has a radiant, confident smile. The lighting is bright with crystal chandeliers and cool LED lighting illuminating every corner. Around her, business professionals applaud in soft focus. Her posture is powerful and victorious. The scene is shot with vivid colors, cool tones of blue and silver, high contrast, ultra-detailed, professional photography style, bright ambient lighting throughout with no dark areas or warm tones. An affair for at least 18 months and has been systematically transferring marital assets without Mrs. Hayes's knowledge or consent. Derek's face twitched, but he kept his composure. Brittany, however, shifted in her seat, her confidence faltering just a bit. "These are serious allegations," Judge Morrison said, looking directly at Derek. "Mr. Hayes, do you deny having an affair?" The courtroom went quiet. Naomi watched Derek, waiting to see if he would actually lie under oath. Derek cleared his throat. "Your Honor, my relationship with Miss Brittany Coleman began after my marriage was already effectively over. My wife and I had been living separate lives for quite some time." "That is a lie," Naomi said before she could stop herself. Judge Morrison held up a hand. "Mrs. Hayes, please let your attorney speak for you." But her eyes were understanding. "Mrs. Patterson, do you have documentation regarding the timeline of this affair and the alleged asset transfers?" "Yes, Your Honor. We have bank statements, credit card receipts, text messages, and testimony from multiple witnesses." Derek's lawyer jumped in. "Your Honor, we object to this characterization. Whatever personal relationship my client may have developed, it has no bearing on the fair division of assets." "Actually," Judge Morrison said, her voice taking on a harder edge, "in this state, adultery and financial misconduct have significant bearing on asset division. I will hear the evidence." For the first time since entering the courthouse, Naomi felt a small spark of hope. Judge Morrison was not going to let Derek charm his way out of this. Derek leaned over to whisper something to his lawyer, his confidence finally starting to crack. Brittany was no longer smiling. She was staring at the judge with something that looked like worry. Mrs. Patterson began presenting documents, laying out a trail of lies and theft that Derek had thought he had hidden well. Hotel receipts charged to their joint credit card while Naomi was out of town on business. Transfers of money from their shared savings account to an account in Derek's name only. Jewelry purchases, including, Naomi realized with fury, probably her grandmother's necklace, which Derek must have taken and given to Brittany. As the evidence piled up, Derek's expression changed from confident to concerned to something approaching panic. His lawyer kept trying to object, to minimize, to explain away, but Judge Morrison was not having it. "We will take a 15-minute recess," Judge Morrison finally said. "When we return, I want to hear from Mr. Hayes directly about these financial transactions." As the judge left the courtroom, Derek turned to look at Naomi. For a moment she saw something in his eyes, maybe regret, maybe just anger at being caught. But then Brittany grabbed his arm, pulling his attention back to her, and whatever moment there might have been was gone. Naomi walked out into the hallway with Mrs. Patterson, her legs shaking but her head held high. "You did well in there," Mrs. Patterson said. "Judge Morrison sees exactly what's going on." Naomi touched her throat where her grandmother's necklace should have been. She thought about her grandmother's words about strong women who never let anyone break them. Derek had tried to break her. He had betrayed her, stolen from her, and humiliated her. But he had not broken her. And before this day was done, he was going to regret everything he had done. 6 months earlier, Naomi had been standing in her kitchen, unpacking groceries and thinking about what to make for dinner. She had just gotten home from a 3-day business trip to Atlanta, where she had successfully closed a deal with a major client for her accounting firm. She was tired but happy, looking forward to a quiet evening with Derek. She had texted him from the airport, letting him know she was home early, but he had not responded. That was not unusual. Derek was not great at checking his phone. As she put away the milk and eggs, she noticed something odd. There were wine glasses in the sink. 2 of them. She and Derek had not had wine together in weeks because he said he was trying to cut back on alcohol. Naomi picked up one of the glasses, seeing the lipstick stain on the rim. Dark red, almost burgundy. Not a color she wore. She preferred softer pinks and nudes. Her heart started beating faster. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Derek had a friend over. Maybe. She walked into the living room and saw it. A woman's earring on the coffee table. Small, dangly with fake diamonds. Not something any of her friends would wear. Naomi felt like the floor was tilting under her feet. She walked upstairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. The bedroom door was closed. She never closed the bedroom door during the day. She opened it. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled. There was a perfume smell in the air, something floral and cheap. On Derek's nightstand was a receipt from a restaurant. Not just any restaurant. The restaurant where Derek had proposed to her 12 years ago. He had taken someone else there. Naomi sat down on the bed, the receipt crumpling in her hand. She felt numb. This could not be happening. They had been married for 12 years. They had been together for 14. They had built a life. But even as she tried to deny it, pieces started falling into place. The late nights Derek claimed he was working. The new attention to his appearance. The way he had become distant and critical, finding fault with everything Naomi did. The sudden interest in going to the gym. The password he had added to his phone. She heard the front door open downstairs. "Naomi?" Derek called out. "You home? I saw your car." She did not answer. She could not. She just sat there holding the receipt, staring at the unmade bed. Derek came up the stairs and appeared in the doorway. He looked at her, then at the receipt in her hand, and his face went pale. "It's not what you think," he said immediately. Those words. Those stupid, cliché words that everyone said when they got caught. "What is it then?" Naomi asked, surprised by how calm her voice sounded. "Explain to me what this is." Derek ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I was going to tell you. I just did not know how." "Tell me what?" "I've been seeing someone," he said, and at least he had the decency to look uncomfortable. "It just happened. I did not plan it." Naomi laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even her. "It just happened? You accidentally took another woman to the restaurant where you proposed to me? You accidentally brought her to our home, to our bed. Don't make this into something bigger than it is," Derek said, his discomfort turning into defensiveness. "You're never here anyway. You're always at work. When was the last time we spent real time together? I work hard so we can have a good life." Naomi stood up, anger finally breaking through the numbness. "I work hard so you could go back to school. So you could start your consulting business. So we could have this house and nice things. I never asked you to do that," Derek shot back. "You chose work over our marriage. That is not fair and you know it." Derek shook his head. "Maybe this marriage was a mistake. Maybe we were too young when we got married. Maybe we just grew apart." Naomi stared at him, seeing a stranger. When had this happened? When had the man she loved become someone who could betray her and then blame her for it? "Who is she?" Naomi asked. "It doesn't matter." "Who is she, Derek?" He sighed. "Her name is Brittany. She works at the gym. She makes me feel appreciated. She actually wants to spend time with me." The gym. Of course. Derek had joined a new gym 6 months ago, claiming he wanted to get in shape. Naomi had encouraged him, happy that he was taking care of himself. "How long?" she asked. "Does it matter?" "How long, Derek?" "A year and a half," he admitted. "A year and a half. 18 months. While Naomi had been working to support them, to build their future, Derek had been lying to her every single day. "I want you to leave," Naomi said quietly. "This is my house too. Actually, it's my house. I bought it before we got married, remember? You just moved in and I added your name to the deed because I trusted you. We're married. That makes it community property. Get out, Derek." "Fine," he said, grabbing a duffel bag from the closet and throwing some clothes into it. "I'm done trying to make this work anyway. Brittany actually appreciates me." He left, slamming the door behind him, and Naomi sat back down on the bed, staring at nothing. Over the following weeks, reality set in. Derek moved in with Brittany, who apparently had an apartment downtown. He refused to go to couples counseling. He wanted a divorce and he wanted it fast. Naomi hired Mrs. Patterson, a lawyer who came highly recommended. As they went through the financials, preparing for the divorce, Mrs. Patterson discovered something troubling. "Naomi, have you looked at your joint savings account recently?" she asked during one of their meetings. "Not in a few months," Naomi admitted. "Why?" Mrs. Patterson slid a bank statement across the desk. The account that should have had close to $80,000 had less than $5,000. "Where did it go?" Naomi asked, feeling sick. "There have been regular transfers to an account in Derek's name only. About $2,000 a month for the past 18 months. The timeline matched his affair. Derek had been stealing from her to fund his relationship with Brittany. Mrs. Patterson pulled out more documents. "There's also this. Multiple charges at expensive restaurants, hotels, jewelry stores. All on your joint credit card. Naomi felt anger like she had never felt before. It was not enough that Derek had betrayed her. He had stolen from her to do it. He had used her money to wine and dine another woman. "Can we get that money back?" she asked. "We're going to try," Mrs. Patterson said. "And we're going to make sure Judge Morrison knows exactly what kind of man Derek Hayes is." Now, 6 months later, sitting in that courthouse, watching Derek sign divorce papers with Brittany by his side, Naomi remembered that anger. She held on to it. Because she was done being the victim of Derek's selfishness. It was time for him to face consequences. After the recess, everyone filed back into the courtroom. Judge Morrison returned to the bench, her expression serious as she looked over the additional documents Mrs. Patterson had submitted. "Mr. Hayes," Judge Morrison said, her tone leaving no room for evasion. "I want you to explain these financial transactions. These withdrawals from the joint savings account, these charges on the joint credit card. All while your wife was working to support the household." Derek stood up, straightening his shoulders in a way that made Naomi think he was trying to project confidence he did not feel. "Your Honor, those were legitimate expenses for my business." "Your consulting business?" Judge Morrison asked, flipping through papers. "The business that, according to these tax returns, has made approximately $12,000 in the past 18 months? Derek's jaw tightened. "I'm building a client base. These things take time." "I see. And the charges at the Riverside Hotel? The one downtown? Those were business expenses. Business meetings sometimes require." "Mr. Hayes, the Riverside Hotel is known for its romantic weekend packages, not its conference rooms." Judge Morrison looked directly at him. "I also have credit card statements showing purchases at 3 different jewelry stores, totaling over $15,000. Were those business expenses as well?" Behind Derek, Brittany was touching her necklace, Naomi's necklace, looking uncomfortable. Several other pieces of jewelry she was wearing suddenly took on new meaning. Derek had bought all of that with Naomi's money. "I have a right to purchase gifts," Derek said. "With money from a joint account that your wife contributed to?" Judge Morrison set the papers down. "Mr. Hayes, let me be clear. What you did is called dissipation of marital assets. You took money that belonged to both you and your wife and used it for an extramarital affair. That is not only morally questionable, it's legally problematic." Derek's lawyer stood up quickly. "Your Honor, my client disputes the characterization of these expenses. Counselor, I have 18 months of bank statements and credit card bills. The pattern is quite clear." Judge Morrison turned to Mrs. Patterson. "Do you have the text messages you referenced earlier?" "Yes, Your Honor." Mrs. Patterson handed a folder to the bailiff, who gave it to the judge. Naomi watched as Judge Morrison read through the messages. They were texts between Derek and Brittany that Naomi's friend Simone had helped her recover from Derek's old phone, which he had foolishly left at the house when he moved out. The messages were explicit, not just about their physical relationship but about their plans for the future. Plans that included Derek divorcing Naomi and taking half of everything she owned. "These are quite revealing," Judge Morrison said, her voice cold. "Mr. Hayes, in these messages, you discuss your plans to divorce your wife and take half the value of her house, her business, and her savings. Is that correct?" Derek had gone pale. "Those messages were private. They were also evidence of intent," Judge Morrison said. "You were planning to leave your wife and take assets that you did not contribute to. Mrs. Patterson, what documentation do you have regarding the purchase of the house and the establishment of Mrs. Hayes's business?" Mrs. Patterson was prepared. She presented the deed to the house, showing that Naomi had purchased it 2 years before meeting Derek. She presented business registration documents, showing that Naomi had started her accounting firm with money from her parents and her own savings. She showed tax returns proving that Naomi's income had supported both of them for most of their marriage. With each piece of evidence, Derek looked smaller in his chair. His lawyer kept trying to object, to reframe, but the facts were clear. "Your Honor," Mrs. Patterson said, "my client has been the primary breadwinner throughout this marriage. She supported Mr. Hayes through graduate school. She paid for his business startup costs. She paid the mortgage, the utilities, the insurance. Meanwhile, Mr. Hayes conducted an affair, stole from their joint accounts, and is now trying to claim half of assets he did not contribute to." Brittany was no longer smiling. She was staring at Derek with an expression Naomi recognized. It was the look of someone realizing they had been lied to. Judge Morrison took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "Mr. Hayes, I have been doing this job for 23 years. I have seen a lot of divorces. But I must say, the level of disrespect you have shown your wife is remarkable. Not only did you betray your marriage vows, You stole from her to fund that betrayal. And now you have the audacity to bring the woman you committed adultery with to these proceedings. The courtroom was dead silent. Even Derek's lawyer looked uncomfortable. Your Honor, Derek started, but Judge Morrison held up her hand. I'm not finished. Mrs. Hayes, your grandmother's necklace. The one you mentioned in your filing. Do you see it in this courtroom? Naomi's heart jumped. Yes, Your Honor. Miss Coleman is wearing it. All eyes turned to Brittany, who touched the necklace and turned red. Miss Coleman, Judge Morrison said, her voice sharp. Please stand. Brittany stood up slowly, looking like she wanted to disappear. That necklace. Where did you get it? Derek gave it to me, Brittany said, her voice small. For our anniversary. Your anniversary, Judge Morrison repeated. You are celebrating the anniversary of an affair with a married man. And you are wearing jewelry that was stolen from his wife. Does that seem appropriate to you? Brittany said nothing. That necklace has significant sentimental value to Mrs. Hayes. It was a family heirloom. Mr. Hayes, did you have permission to take that necklace? I thought. Derek started, then stopped. You thought what? That everything your wife owned was yours to give away to your mistress. The word mistress hung in the air. Brittany flinched. This is exactly the kind of entitled behavior that this court will not reward, Judge Morrison continued. We will reconvene in 2 days for my final ruling. Mr. Hayes, I suggest you use that time to think very carefully about your choices. And Miss Coleman, I suggest you consider whether you want to continue to involve yourself in these proceedings. Wearing stolen jewelry to a courthouse shows remarkably poor judgment. She banged her gavel. Court adjourned. As everyone stood, Naomi felt something shift inside her. Judge Morrison had seen exactly what Derek was. There was no charm, no smooth talking, no convincing this judge that he was the victim. In the hallway, Derek grabbed Brittany's arm and pulled her aside. Naomi could not hear what they were saying, but she could see that they were arguing. Brittany kept touching the necklace and Derek kept shaking his head. That went well, Mrs. Patterson said with a small smile. Judge Morrison is not pleased with him. What happens now? Naomi asked. Now we wait for her ruling. But based on what just happened in there, I think you're going to be very happy with the outcome. As Naomi walked to her car, she saw Derek and Brittany still arguing in the parking lot. Brittany was crying, her makeup running. Derek looked furious. Good, Naomi thought. Let them be miserable together. She got in her car and drove away, leaving them behind. 2 days until the final ruling. 2 days until she could close this chapter of her life forever. She touched her throat where her grandmother's necklace should have been and made a promise to herself. She was going to get that necklace back. She was going to get everything Derek had stolen from her. And then she was going to build a life so good, so full, so successful, that Derek would spend the rest of his days regretting what he had thrown away. 2 days later, Naomi sat in the same courtroom, wearing a gray suit that made her feel powerful. She had barely slept, running through every possible outcome in her mind. Mrs. Patterson had been optimistic, but Naomi knew that nothing was guaranteed in divorce court. Derek arrived looking tired. The confident swagger he had displayed at the first hearing was gone. Brittany was not with him this time, and Naomi noticed that his lawyer kept glancing at him with an expression that suggested their relationship had become strained. Judge Morrison entered and everyone stood. When they sat back down, the judge wasted no time. I have reviewed all the evidence presented in this case, she began. I have reviewed the financial documents, the text messages, the timeline of events. I have also done some additional research into Mr. Hayes's business activities. Derek shifted in his seat. Mr. Hayes, you claimed that the money you withdrew from the joint savings account was for business expenses. However, when I look at your business tax returns, I see no corresponding deductions for these expenses. Can you explain that? Derek's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client may have simply failed to claim all eligible deductions. Counselor, I am asking your client, not you. Judge Morrison looked at Derek. Well? Derek cleared his throat. I might have made some errors in my tax filings. Errors? Judge Morrison repeated. Or perhaps those expenses were never legitimate business costs to begin with. She pulled out another document. I also had my clerk do some checking. Mr. Hayes, you registered your consulting business 3 years ago. According to public records, you have had exactly 4 clients in that time. And your total revenue from those 4 clients was approximately $12,000 over 3 years. Is that correct? Business is slow in this economy, Derek said weakly. Yet you withdrew $75,000 from your joint savings account over 18 months. Where did that money go? The courtroom was silent. "I will tell you where it went," Judge Morrison said, her voice hard. "It went to hotel rooms. It went to expensive dinners. It went to jewelry and gifts for Miss Coleman. It went to funding your affair while your wife worked 60-hour weeks to keep your household afloat." She flipped to another page. "I also have testimony from Miss Coleman herself." Naomi's head snapped up. Brittany had given testimony? "Miss Coleman contacted this court yesterday," Judge Morrison continued. "She provided a sworn statement detailing your relationship with her, including the fact that you told her you were separated from your wife long before you actually were. You told her your wife was cold and neglectful. You told her your wife did not appreciate you. You painted yourself as the victim." Derek's face was red now. "But Miss Coleman also stated that she recently discovered you lied about your financial situation. You told her you were a successful consultant. You showed her bank statements from the joint account as if that money was yours alone. You made promises about your future together that depended on taking half of your wife's assets." Judge Morrison set the paper down. "Miss Coleman has wisely decided to distance herself from this situation. She has returned the necklace in question to this court, along with several other pieces of jewelry that she now understands were purchased with stolen funds." Naomi felt tears spring to her eyes. She was getting her grandmother's necklace back. "Your Honor," Derek's lawyer tried again, "there seems to be a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding, counselor. Your client is a thief and a liar. He stole from his wife. He committed adultery. He attempted to manipulate this court into giving him assets he has no right to. And he did all of this while showing no remorse whatsoever." Judge Morrison looked directly at Derek. "Mr. Hayes, I am going to make my ruling very clear. You will not receive a single penny from the sale or continued ownership of the house, as it was purchased by Mrs. Hayes before your marriage and she has paid the mortgage throughout. You will not receive any portion of Mrs. Hayes's business, as she built it with her own money and labor. You will repay every cent you withdrew from the joint savings account, a total of $75,000. You will pay Mrs. Hayes's legal fees. And you will return any other items you took from the marital home within 30 days. Derek looked like he might be sick. "Furthermore," Judge Morrison continued, "because you committed fraud by representing joint assets as your own to Miss Coleman and potentially others, I am ordering a full audit of your finances. If any other irregularities are found, they will be referred to the appropriate authorities." "Your Honor, this is extremely harsh," Derek's lawyer protested. "Harsh? Counselor, your client stole $75,000 from his wife. In some jurisdictions that could be considered a felony. I am being quite generous by handling this as a civil matter rather than a criminal one." Naomi felt like her heart might burst. This was more than she had hoped for. So much more. "Mrs. Hayes," Judge Morrison said, turning to her with a softer expression. "I am sorry you had to endure this. No one should be treated the way your husband treated you. You worked hard, you were faithful, and you deserved better." "Thank you, Your Honor," Naomi managed to say. "I am also ordering Mr. Hayes to sign the divorce papers immediately, with no further delays or negotiations. This marriage is dissolved as of today." The bailiff brought the papers to Derek, who sat there staring at them like they might bite him. "Sign them, Mr. Hayes," Judge Morrison said. "Now." With shaking hands, Derek signed. Then the bailiff brought them to Naomi, who signed without hesitation. Mrs. Patterson signed as a witness, and just like that, it was done. 12 years of marriage, ended with a signature. "This court is adjourned," Judge Morrison said. As people began to file out, the bailiff approached Naomi with a small bag. Inside was her grandmother's necklace. Naomi took it out with trembling hands. The gold was cool against her fingers, the small diamond catching the light. She put it on, feeling the weight of it settle where it belonged. Mrs. Patterson squeezed her shoulder. "You did it." "We did it," Naomi corrected. Across the courtroom, Derek was arguing with his lawyer in harsh whispers. His face was red, his movements agitated. He looked over at Naomi once, and she saw something in his expression that might have been regret or might have been just anger at being caught. She did not care which it was. She was done trying to read Derek's emotions, done trying to understand him, done giving him any space in her mind or heart. Judge Morrison had called him a thief and a liar in open court. His reputation was destroyed. And Brittany had turned on him, probably realizing that the man she thought she was getting did not actually exist. As Naomi walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun, she felt lighter than she had in years. The nightmare was over. Now came the good part. Now came building the life she deserved. The news spread fast. Naomi had not said anything to anyone except her closest friends, but apparently someone who had been in the courtroom that day had talked. Within a week, everyone in their social circle knew what Derek had done. More importantly, they knew what Judge Morrison had said about it. The first person to reach out was Derek's mother, Carol. Naomi was at her office when her phone rang with Carol's name on the screen. She almost did not answer, but something made her pick up. "Naomi," Carol said, her voice thick with emotion. "I just heard. I need you to know that I had no idea. If I had known what Derek was doing—" "It's okay, Carol," Naomi said, surprised by how calm she felt. "You're not responsible for your son's choices. I raised him better than this. His father and we taught him about honesty and respect. I don't know where we went wrong." "You didn't go wrong. Derek made his own decisions." There was a pause. "I want to apologize to you. For everything. You were always good to our family. You were good to Derek even when he didn't deserve it." After they hung up, Naomi sat at her desk, staring at nothing. She had always liked Carol. It was good to know that Derek's family was not defending his actions. Her phone rang again. This time it was her friend Simone. "Girl, have you seen Derek's Facebook?" Simone asked. "I blocked him on everything." "Why?" "He's losing his mind. He posted this long rant about how the justice system is unfair and how men get treated poorly in divorces. People are destroying him in the comments." Naomi felt a small smile tug at her lips. "What are they saying?" "Let me read you some of these," Simone said with glee. One person wrote, "Maybe the justice system wouldn't be so unfair if you hadn't stolen $75,000 from your wife." Another one said, "You brought your mistress to court and you're surprised the judge didn't like it? Are you stupid or just arrogant?" "Stop," Naomi said, laughing despite herself. "That's terrible. It gets better." His cousin posted, "I was at that courthouse, Derek. You got exactly what you deserved. Aunt Carol is ashamed of you and so am I." Naomi felt a twinge of sympathy for Derek, which she quickly pushed away. He had made his bed. Now he could lie in it. Over the next few weeks, more news filtered back to Naomi through friends and acquaintances. Derek's consulting business, which had barely existed anyway, lost its few remaining clients. No one wanted to work with someone who had been publicly called a thief by a judge. His name was mud in their community. Brittany, according to mutual acquaintances, had completely cut ties with him. She had apparently been horrified to learn the full truth about Derek's finances and his lies. The fantasy she had been living, of being the new wife of a successful consultant, had crashed into reality. Derek had to move in with a friend because he could not afford an apartment on his own. The friend, according to Simone's sources, was already getting tired of him. "He's apparently drinking a lot," Simone reported during one of their coffee dates, "and complaining constantly about how everyone turned against him." "He turned against himself," Naomi said, sipping her latte. "He just doesn't want to admit it." Naomi had started going to therapy, something she had put off for too long. Her therapist, Dr. Williams, helped her process the betrayal and the anger. Helped her understand that Derek's actions were not a reflection of her worth. "You did everything right," Dr. Williams told her during one session. "You worked hard. You were faithful. You supported your partner. His failure to appreciate that is his failing, not yours." "I keep wondering if I missed signs," Naomi admitted. "If I was too focused on work." "Naomi, people who want to cheat will find a way to justify it. Even if you had worked less, even if you had been home every night, Derek still would have made the choices he made. Because those choices were about him, not you." The words helped. Slowly, Naomi began to let go of the guilt she had been carrying. She had been a good wife. She had loved Derek. She had done nothing to deserve what he did. Meanwhile, her accounting firm was thriving. Word had somehow gotten out about her situation, probably through the same gossip mill that had destroyed Derek's reputation, and potential clients were reaching out. Women, especially women who had been through divorces, who understood what it meant to rebuild. One of these women was Patricia Chen, a successful real estate developer who was looking for a new accounting firm to handle her business finances. "I heard what happened to you," Patricia said during their first meeting. "Judge Morrison is a friend of mine. She told me you handled yourself with grace and dignity throughout that whole ordeal." Naomi felt her face get hot. "The judge talked about my case?" "Not in detail. She just mentioned that she had recently presided over a divorce where a woman had been treated terribly by her husband, and that woman had impressed her. When I heard your name through mutual contacts, I put two and two together." Patricia became Naomi's biggest client, and through her connections, Naomi landed 3 more major accounts. Her firm grew from just her and 2 part-time assistants to her and 5 full-time employees. She moved out of the small office she had been renting and into a proper office suite. She hired a marketing person and a junior accountant. She started turning down clients because she did not have enough hours in the day. It was overwhelming, but in the best way. She was building something real. Something that was entirely hers. One evening, as she was locking up the office, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life." It was Derek. She recognized his writing style, the victim mentality. Naomi stared at the message for a long moment. She could respond. She could tell him that he had destroyed his own life. She could list all the ways he had wronged her. But what was the point? Derek would never understand. He would never take responsibility. He would always find a way to blame someone else. She blocked the number and put her phone away. Derek was her past. And her future was looking very bright. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Naomi barely recognized her own life. Everything had changed, and almost all of it for the better. She had sold the house, the one she had bought before meeting Derek, the one that held too many memories of betrayal. The market was good, and she made a substantial profit. With that money and her growing business income, she bought a beautiful condo in a new development downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a modern kitchen, a balcony with a view of the city skyline. It was the first place that was truly hers. Derek had never lived there. His presence did not haunt any of the rooms. She could walk through her front door and feel only peace. Her firm, Hayes Accounting Solutions, was thriving. She had recently hired 2 more accountants and a full-time receptionist. The small office suite had become too cramped, so she signed a lease on a larger space in a better building. Her name was on a plaque in the lobby. Her business cards were crisp and professional. Patricia Chin had become not just a client but a friend. They had lunch together once a month, talking about business and life and everything in between. "You know what I admire about you?" Patricia said during one of these lunches. "You didn't let what Derek did make you bitter. You took all that energy and put it into building something amazing." "I was bitter for a while," Naomi admitted. "I was so angry I could barely breathe sometimes. But you didn't stay there. That's the difference. A lot of people would have stayed stuck in that anger." Naomi thought about that. It was true that she had made a conscious choice to move forward. Every time she felt the anger rising, threatening to consume her, she channeled it into work, into building her business, into becoming the best version of herself. She had also reconnected with friends she had neglected during her marriage. Women she had known in college, colleagues she had lost touch with, neighbors she had never made time for. She hosted dinner parties in her new condo. She joined a book club. She started taking a dance class on Thursday nights. Her life was full in a way it had never been when she was married. She had thought Derek was her whole world, but now she realized how small that world had been. How much she had given up trying to make one person happy. One Saturday morning she was at the farmer's market when she ran into Carol, Derek's mother. Naomi's first instinct was to avoid her, but Carol spotted her before she could slip away. "Naomi," Carol said, walking over with her shopping bag. "How are you?" "I'm good, Carol. Really good." Carol looked at her, taking in Naomi's new haircut, her confident posture, the smile on her face. "You look wonderful." "Truly. Thank you. How are you?" Carol's face fell. "I worry about Derek. He's not doing well." Naomi felt a pang of something, not quite sympathy but something close to it. "I'm sorry to hear that. He's living with his brother now. Lost his job. Can't seem to get back on his feet." Carol paused. "I think he's finally starting to understand what he threw away." Naomi did not know what to say to that. She did not want Derek to suffer, exactly, but she also did not feel responsible for his situation. "He asked about you," Carol continued. "Asked if I'd heard how you were doing. I think he hopes you might be struggling, to be honest. To make himself feel better about his choices." "I'm not struggling," Naomi said firmly. "I'm doing better than I ever have." "Good. That's good." Carol reached out and squeezed Naomi's arm. "You deserved better than what my son gave you. I hope you find someone who treats you the way you should be treated." After Carol left, Naomi continued her shopping, thinking about that conversation. Derek wanted her to be struggling. He wanted to believe that she could not make it without him. That was typical Derek. Even in failure, his ego needed protecting. But she was not struggling. She was thriving. That evening, she was preparing dinner in her new kitchen when her doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole and saw a delivery person holding a large bouquet of flowers. "Delivery for Naomi Hayes," the person said when she opened the door. Naomi took the flowers, confused. She had not ordered anything. She looked at the card. Congratulations on your success. You've earned it. Patricia and the Women's Business Network. Naomi smiled. Patricia had mentioned the Women's Business Network a few times, a group of female entrepreneurs who supported each other. Patricia had been trying to get Naomi to attend one of their monthly meetings. The flowers were beautiful, a mix of roses, lilies, and something exotic she could not name. She arranged them in a vase on her dining table, thinking about community and support and how much stronger she felt surrounded by people who built her up instead of tearing her down. Her phone buzzed. A text from her friend Simone. Girls' night tomorrow? We're celebrating your new office space. Naomi replied, absolutely. My place at 7? Another text came through, this time from Patricia. Did you get the flowers? The network is excited to meet you at next week's meeting. We need more accountants. Business owners always need tax advice. Naomi laughed, typing back her thanks and confirming she would attend. As she cooked dinner, just for herself, in her own kitchen, in her own home, she felt something she had not felt in years. She felt content. Not just happy in the moment, but deeply satisfied with her life and where it was going. Derek had tried to break her. He had betrayed her, stolen from her, humiliated her. But he had failed to destroy her. Instead, he had freed her to become someone stronger, someone better, someone who knew her own worth. She ate dinner on her balcony, watching the sun set over the city, and made a mental note to thank Judge Morrison somehow. That judge had seen through Derek's lies and given Naomi the justice she deserved. Because of that justice, Naomi had been able to rebuild. And what she was building was so much better than what she had lost. 1 year after the divorce, Naomi received an invitation that made her pause. It was for a charity gala hosted by the City Business Association, an event she had never been invited to before. The invitation was addressed to her and included a note from the organization's president thanking her for her contributions to the local business community. She almost threw it away thinking there had been some mistake, but then Patricia called. Did you get the invitation? Patricia asked, excitement in her voice. To the gala? Yes, but I think it was sent to me by accident. No accident. I nominated you for the Rising Entrepreneur Award. And you're one of the finalists. Naomi sat down hard on her couch. What? Your firm has grown 300% in the past year, Naomi. You've hired 8 employees. You've landed major clients. You're exactly the kind of success story they want to recognize. The gala was black tie, held at the city's fanciest hotel. Naomi bought a new dress for the occasion, a sleek navy gown that made her feel like she could conquer the world. She wore her grandmother's necklace, the gold warm against her skin. When she arrived at the hotel, she was surprised by how many people she knew. Patricia was there, of course, along with several other members of the Women's Business Network. Some of her clients were there. Even Mrs. Patterson, her divorce lawyer, was in attendance. You look beautiful, Mrs. Patterson said, giving her a hug. And congratulations on the nomination. I still can't believe it, Naomi admitted. Believe it? You've earned it. The ballroom was elegant, with round tables covered in white linens and centerpieces of white roses. Naomi was seated at a table with Patricia and several other business owners. The conversation flowed easily, talk of challenges and successes, of goals and dreams. Naomi felt like she belonged. For so long during her marriage, she had felt like she had to make herself smaller, had to apologize for her ambition. But here, in this room full of driven people, her ambition was celebrated. The awards ceremony began after dinner. Several categories were announced before they reached the Rising Entrepreneur Award. Naomi's heart was pounding as the presenter read the names of the finalists. And the winner is... The presenter paused for dramatic effect. Naomi Hayes of Hayes Accounting Solutions. The room erupted in applause. Naomi stood on shaky legs, walking to the stage in a daze. She accepted the glass trophy, its weight substantial in her hands. Thank you so much, she said into the microphone, looking out at the sea of faces. A year ago I was at the lowest point of my life. I had just gone through a difficult divorce. I was rebuilding everything from scratch. But I had people who believed in me, who supported me, who reminded me that I was capable of great things. She saw Patricia in the crowd, nodding encouragingly. This award is not just mine. It belongs to everyone who lifted me up when I was down. To my clients who trusted me with their business. To my employees who worked so hard every day. To my friends who reminded me of my worth. Thank you all. As she walked off the stage, people she had never met came up to congratulate her. Business cards were pressed into her hand. Invitations for lunch meetings and coffee dates and speaking engagements. But the person who surprised her most was the man who approached her near the end of the evening. He was tall, with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Congratulations on your award," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Jordan Mitchell. I own Mitchell Financial Services." Naomi shook his hand. "Nice to meet you. I was impressed by your speech. It takes courage to be that honest about struggling." They talked for a few minutes about business, about the challenges of entrepreneurship, about the importance of resilience. He was easy to talk to, and Naomi found herself laughing at his stories about his own business mishaps. When the evening ended, Jordan asked for her business card. "I'd love to grab coffee sometime. Maybe we could talk about collaborating on some projects." "I'd like that," Naomi said, and she meant it. As she drove home that night, the trophy sitting in her passenger seat, Naomi felt like she was living in a different reality than the one she had known just a year ago. She was an award-winning entrepreneur. She had a thriving business. She had a supportive network of friends and colleagues. And maybe, just maybe, she had met someone who could be a friend or possibly something more, though she was in no rush. Meanwhile, according to the gossip that still filtered back to her occasionally, Derek's life had continued its downward spiral. He had bounced from job to job, unable to keep anything for more than a few months. His reputation preceded him everywhere he went. Brittany had not just left him. She had apparently written a scathing review about him on some dating app, warning other women away. The review had gone viral in their local area, becoming a cautionary tale about men who lie about their finances and their marriages. Derek's brother had finally kicked him out after Derek failed to pay his share of rent for 3 months in a row. Now he was living with his parents, who reportedly gave him a curfew and made him do chores like he was a teenager again. Simone had delighted in telling Naomi these details, but Naomi found that she did not take as much pleasure in Derek's failures as she once might have. She had been so angry for so long, had wanted him to suffer the way he made her suffer. But now, holding her award, living in her beautiful condo, running her successful business, she realized she did not need Derek to fail for her to be happy. She was happy regardless of what happened to him. His downfall was not her victory. Her success was her victory. And that success tasted sweet. 18 months after the divorce, Naomi was in her office reviewing quarterly reports when her receptionist buzzed her. "Naomi, there's a call for you from the district attorney's office." Naomi's heart skipped. "The DA's office? Put them through." "Miss Hayes? This is Assistant District Attorney Thomas Wright. I'm calling regarding your ex-husband, Derek Hayes." Naomi sat up straighter. "Is everything okay?" "That depends on your perspective. We've been conducting an investigation based on the court-ordered audit from your divorce proceedings. We've discovered some irregularities that go beyond what was addressed in your divorce case." "What kind of irregularities?" "I can't give you all the details yet, but it appears Mr. Hayes may have been involved in fraud beyond just the dissipation of marital assets. He created a fake consulting contract with a real company, then billed them for services he never provided. When they refused to pay, he forged documents to make it appear they had agreed to the charges." Naomi felt dizzy. Derek had committed fraud? "We wanted to reach out to you because some of this activity occurred while you were married, using business cards and letterhead associated with your joint address. We need to make sure you weren't involved in any way." "I had no idea," Naomi said, her voice shaking. "I didn't know about any of this. We figured as much based on the divorce records, but we need to verify. Would you be willing to come in and give a statement?" Naomi agreed, and 2 days later found herself at the DA's office, going through dates and documents with ADA Wright. It became clear that Derek had been conducting his fraudulent activities during the last year of their marriage, probably trying to make money to support his affair with Brittany. "You're not in any trouble," ADA Wright assured her. "Your divorce records make it very clear that you were not involved in or aware of Mr. Hayes' financial activities. In fact, you were a victim of his theft." "What happens now?" Naomi asked. "We're building a case against him. The company he defrauded wants to press charges. Combined with the evidence from your divorce case, we have a strong case for fraud and forgery. He's looking at potential jail time." Jail time. Naomi had wanted Derek to face consequences, but she had never imagined it would go this far. Over the following months, the case built. Derek was formally charged with fraud, forgery, and theft. The local news picked up the story, and suddenly Naomi's phone was ringing with requests for interviews. She declined them all. This was not about her anymore. This was about Derek facing the natural consequences of his actions. The trial was set for 6 months later. Mrs. Patterson called to let Naomi know that she might be called as a witness. "They want you to testify about Derek's financial behavior during your marriage, to establish a pattern," Mrs. Patterson explained. Naomi agreed, though the thought of facing Derek in court again made her stomach turn. Meanwhile, her business continued to grow. She had been approached by a national accounting firm about a possible acquisition. They wanted to buy her company, keep her on as regional director, and expand her model to other cities. It was tempting. The money they were offering was life-changing. But Naomi had built this company from nothing. It was hers. Did she really want to sell it? She discussed it with Jordan, who had become a close friend over the past few months. They had coffee every week talking about business and life. There was an attraction there, Naomi could feel it, but both of them were taking things slow. "What does your gut tell you?" Jordan asked. "My gut says I'm not ready to sell. I'm enjoying building this too much." "Then don't sell. Make them wait. Or tell them no. You're in the driver's seat here, Naomi." She turned down the acquisition offer but negotiated a partnership instead. The national firm would refer clients to her, and she would handle their regional accounts. It was the best of both worlds, growth without giving up control. When the trial finally came, Naomi sat in the witness box and told the truth about everything. About how Derek had stolen from their joint accounts. About how she had discovered he was using their home address for business correspondence she knew nothing about. About how he had lied to her repeatedly about his business activities. Derek sat at the defense table looking smaller than she remembered. His lawyer tried to discredit her testimony, tried to suggest she was bitter about the divorce and exaggerating. But the prosecutor had evidence. Bank statements. Forged documents. Testimony from the company Derek had defrauded. The pattern was clear. The jury took less than a day to reach a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Derek was sentenced to 3 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 months. He was also ordered to pay restitution to the company he had defrauded and to continue paying back the money he owed Naomi. As the judge read the sentence, Naomi felt a complicated mix of emotions. She was not happy that Derek was going to prison. She was not happy that his life had fallen apart so completely. But she was satisfied that justice had been served. That Derek's actions had consequences. That the legal system, which Judge Morrison had first used to protect her, had continued to hold him accountable. Outside the courthouse, reporters tried to get a statement from her. She kept it brief. "I'm grateful that the truth came out. I hope this serves as a reminder that actions have consequences. That's all I have to say." As she walked to her car, her phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. "How did it go?" "It's over," she typed back. "Finally over. Dinner tonight? I think you could use a celebration." She smiled. "I'd like that." That evening, over pasta and wine at a quiet restaurant, Jordan raised his glass. To justice served in new beginnings. Naomi clinked her glass against his. To new beginnings. As they talked and laughed, Naomi realized that this was what happiness felt like. Not the absence of problems but the presence of good things. Good friends. Good work. Good people who valued her. Derek had tried to destroy her. Instead, he had freed her to become the person she was always meant to be. And that person was pretty amazing. 2 years after the divorce, Naomi stood in the new headquarters of Hayes Accounting Solutions. The space was beautiful, modern, bright, with individual offices for her team and a conference room with a view of the city. She had 15 employees now. Her client list included some of the biggest businesses in the region. She had been profiled in the local business journal. She had been asked to speak at the Chamber of Commerce. She was living a life she could have barely imagined back when she was signing those divorce papers in Judge Morrison's courtroom. The office warming party was in full swing. Patricia was there, along with the Women's Business Network crew. Jordan was there, no longer just a friend but officially her boyfriend of 6 months. Mrs. Patterson had even stopped by, bringing a bottle of champagne. "Look at what you've built," Mrs. Patterson said, surveying the space. "I always knew you had it in you." "Thank you for believing in me," Naomi said, squeezing her hand. "None of this would have happened without you fighting for me in court. I just presented the facts. You did the hard work of rebuilding." Simone pulled Naomi aside at one point, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "So, you and Jordan seem pretty serious." Naomi felt her cheeks get hot. "We're taking it slow. He looks at you like you hung the moon. And girl, you deserve that. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are." Naomi glanced over at Jordan, who was talking to Patricia about some business matter. He must have felt her looking because he turned and smiled at her, his whole face lighting up. It was so different from what she had with Derek. There was no drama with Jordan. No lies. No games. Just two people who enjoyed each other's company, who supported each other's dreams, who made each other laugh. She was not rushing into anything. She had learned her lesson about losing herself in a relationship. But she was open to the possibility of love again in time. Later that evening, after most of the guests had left, Naomi stood on the balcony of her office, looking out at the city lights. Jordan came up beside her, handing her a glass of champagne. "Quite a view," he said. "I still can't believe this is mine," Naomi admitted. "Sometimes I feel like I'm going to wake up and find out it was all a dream." "It's real. You made it real." He paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you ever think about him? About Derek?" Naomi considered the question. "Sometimes. Mostly I wonder if he's okay. If prison changed him at all." Derek had been in prison for 8 months now. According to Carol, who Naomi still talked to occasionally, he was doing okay. He had gotten a job in the prison library. He was taking some online courses. He was, allegedly, finally taking responsibility for his actions. "I hope he learns from this," Naomi said. "I hope he becomes a better person. Not for me but for himself." "That's generous of you, considering what he did. I've learned that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Derek made his choices. He's facing his consequences. That's not my burden to carry anymore." Jordan put his arm around her shoulders, and they stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city below. Naomi thought about the journey she had been on. From that terrible day in the courthouse, watching Derek sign divorce papers with Brittany by his side, to this moment, standing in her own successful business with a man who treated her with respect and kindness. She had lost so much. Her marriage, her savings, her trust in people. But she had gained so much more. Her self-respect, her independence, her understanding of her own strength. She touched her grandmother's necklace, thinking about those words from her wedding day. "You come from strong women who never let anyone break them." Her grandmother had been right. Derek had tried to break her, but she had refused to break. She had bent, yes. She had hurt. But she had not broken. And now she was stronger than ever. 3 years after the divorce, Naomi was in her office preparing for a presentation when her receptionist buzzed her. "Naomi, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important." "Who is it?" There was a pause. "He says his name is Derek Hayes." Naomi's heart stopped. "Derek, here." In her office. He had been released from prison 2 months ago. She had heard through Carol that he was living in a halfway house, working at a grocery store, trying to rebuild his life. But she had not expected him to come see her. "Do you want me to tell him to leave?" her receptionist asked. Naomi took a deep breath. "No. Give me 5 minutes, then send him in." Those 5 minutes felt like an hour. Naomi stood up, smoothed her skirt, checked her reflection in the window. She looked good, strong, successful. Nothing like the broken woman Derek had left behind. When he walked in, she barely recognized him. He had lost weight. His clothes were cheap and ill-fitting. He had lines on his face that had not been there before. But more than that, he looked humbled. The arrogance that had once defined him was gone. "Naomi," he said, stopping just inside the door. "Thank you for seeing me. What do you want, Derek?" He looked around the office, taking in the expensive furniture, the view, the framed awards on her wall. "You've done well for yourself." "Yes, I have." He stopped, struggling with words. "I came here to apologize. I know it's too little, too late. I know nothing I say can make up for what I did. But I needed you to hear it from me. I was wrong. About everything." Naomi sat down, gesturing for him to sit across from her. She needed to be higher than him, needed the desk between them as a barrier. "What exactly are you apologizing for, Derek?" "For cheating on you. For stealing from you. For lying to you. For treating you like you didn't matter when you were the best thing that ever happened to me." His voice broke. "I threw away 12 years with an amazing woman because I was selfish and stupid. And I've spent every day since then regretting it." Naomi studied him, looking for signs of manipulation, of the smooth-talking Derek who could make excuses for anything. But all she saw was a broken man who had finally faced the consequences of his actions. "I don't need your apology," she said finally. "I've moved on. I've built a life that I love. What you did hurt me terribly, but it also freed me to become the person I was meant to be." "I know. I can see that." He gestured at the office. "You're successful. You're happy. You have everything you deserve." "And you?" she asked. "What are you doing now?" "Working. Trying to pay back my debts. Going to therapy. Learning to be a better person." He laughed bitterly. "I'm 42 years old, living in a halfway house, working at a grocery store. This is what my choices brought me." There was a long silence. Naomi could see that Derek